Hi, it's Matt. I have always wanted to know how beer is made, and lucky for me, Small Beer Brewery have invited me to have a go. Well, I thought this was going to pour a bit quicker. It's a slightly extended intro, but I've got to illustrate the point before we start, haven't I? Oh yeah. Now that's a good beer.
Oh, easy.
Oh, it smells like a beer cellar. That is so sweet. This is Ben.
Yes, it is. Ben is the brewer here at Small Beer Brewery, and he's the person who's going to be showing me the ropes today.
Now, from the little bit I know about beer, it's something to do with grains, yeast, and waiting for fermenting to happen.
So grains, yeast, water and hops.
Right, oh yes, hops, because that makes it taste all tingly.
Yes, that's one way to put it, certainly.
So what ingredients are we going to be using today?
So today we will be using barley.
Yeah.
We'll be using a little bit of wheat, and we'll be using hops and yeast.
Great.
At various times in various combinations.
And what kind of beer are we making?
Today we'll be making a Kolsch.
A Kolsch?
Which is a German-style ale designed to replicate a lager.
Cool. So I like beer. I like different types of beer, and I generally prefer like the IPA kind of stuff to the lagery kind of stuff. And then you get the stouty kind of things. Now these are all beer,
Yes.
which all have vaguely the same basic ingredients.
Yes.
How do you make them all different?
So if you're talking the difference between a stout and a lager, obviously a stout is much darker, and it's made darker by the use of much darker roasted malts. So before the barley gets to here, and where I can use it, it goes through a process called malting,
Right.
which basically you take a barley seed and you trick it to think it's going to grow up to be a big, strong barley plant,
Yeah.
and then you kill it. And then you roast it, and the length of time at which you roast it determines how dark that malt is.
Right.
And the darker the malt is, the darker the beer will be. And so that makes then a stout if you're using lots of darker roasted malts.
Yeah.
And then say the difference between a lager and ale
Yeah.
mostly comes down to the style of yeast you use. Different yeast will produce different chemicals which
Yeah.
make the beer taste different.
Great.
So that's where you have the lager yeast and the ale yeast.
Right. So you spoke about the processes that have happened before, like making beer takes time.
Yes.
We can't do the whole process today. What are we going to get to see and do?
So there's a famous phrase that says, brewers don't make beer.
Okay.
Brewers make wort. And so wort is the sugar water. And
Okay.
the yeast is the thing that makes the beer.
Okay, yeah.
So today we'll be doing the whole process of making the wort. We'll pitch the yeast,
Yeah.
and then the yeast will do its magic and make the beer happen.
And you come back later and then find
Exactly.
the beer. Yeah. Great. Well, you can tell we're in a working factory from the noise in the background, so let's go stop. Where are we going next?
Are we going this way? So the first step is to sterilize the tank. This tank here is the one we'll be brewing into. We need to make sure it's absolutely clean and sterile, otherwise it'll get an infection and the beer won't taste very good. So the first step is we need to get in here and we need to take off all of these fittings.
This is surprisingly heavy. So what?
So
is
if
this
you
where
pull that all the way out, so these bits all get cleaned and sterilized for sitting here.
Is this the kind of thing where the slightest amount of bad stuff in here is going to spoil the whole batch?
Precisely, yeah. So you don't want any form of bacteria or infection or foreign yeast in there at all. I have had like cross-contamination of brewing yeast, where a yeast gets into a beer that I don't want it in.
Oh, so that's going to make it taste different.
Exactly, so that's like a lager yeast going into an ale, so it will kick off lagery tastes in your ale, which you don't necessarily want.
Well, you've gone high up, so I assume you're doing the same up there with other fittings.
Exactly.
God, this is one of those jobs where you're going to get a workout every day. I can see it.
That is how it works, yeah.
So the kind of beer you make, you're called small beer for a reason, right?
So yes, small beer is a historical style of beer existing below 2.8%. Prior to clean water and sanitation, people would drink low alcohol beer because it was safer to drink than water.
Oh, yes.
Small beer was served to everyone from school children to high society. Everyone was drinking small beer all the time. So we're sort of reviving that tradition.
And what's the difference in making the small beer to the higher percentage beers?
So it boils down to how much sugar you put in. If you put in lots of sugar, the yeast has lots of food to turn into alcohol. If you don't put a lot of sugar in, then you don't create a lot of alcohol.
Oh.
So next step,
Yeah.
you grab that
Yeah.
and hook that end of the hose up to that one there.
This end of the hose.
That's the one.
This is surprisingly heavy. This is a very heavy hose, actually.
So this is where we send the water to the vessel,
Okay.
sterilize it.
Ah.
And later on, it will also be the same hose that we use to send the wort into the vessel as well.
Okay. This is where we find water spraying everywhere later because I've done this wrong.
How are you getting on?
Terribly. How are you getting on? Yay, I put a pipe on. Ooh, this one's slightly warm.
So this is the water.
Okay.
So we'll be pumping it out from this hose into the vessel through the top,
Yeah.
back out of the vessel, and pumping it to return back to the same vessel.
And by pumping it straight back into here after we've used it to clean, does that mean you reuse the water?
So that water then becomes the beer.
Ah.
So if you flick that switch
Okay.
and hit that green button for me.
And what's all of this doing?
So
Is
this
that
is
a water
pumping
pump?
this is pumping the hot water into the vessel.
Oh, I can hear it flowing.
And we're waiting for that to get to 72,
Okay.
and we keep it at 72 degrees for 20 minutes to
Okay.
sterilize it.
Okay.
And while that's warming up, we can go and sort out the grain. Okay, let's go grab the grain.
Okay.
How do you feel about driving?
I mean, driving sounds great. Does that mean all the cleaning's done?
The cleaning is never done. There'll be more of that later on.
Okay.
You jump in there for me.
whirlwind. Oh, you mean the forklift? Yes. All right.
Right, turn it on. And then you want to put it in reverse, which is this little lever here, towards you. Take it back. So it steers with the rear, so it'll be slightly different.
Yeah.
You want to line yourself
that
straight
makes
up
it-
with this pallet here.
Ah.
You're a natural.
Yay.
And then reverse.
I'm driving a forklift truck. I'm driving a forklift truck. Whee!
And yeah, you want to park it about there.
Why do I get the feeling that the next step is not going to involve
And
the
drop it
forklift?
there. No, that's where the forklift ends.
That means we've got a lot of lifting to do now, doesn't it?
It does indeed. We've got to grab all these and line them all up here.
Okay. So what's in these bags?
Mainly barley.
Yeah.
And then there's a tiny bit of wheat that'll be going in.
Okay.
So now we've got to open them all up.
Okay.
So you've got to chop off that tiny string
Yeah.
and then just pull the whole thing.
Okay.
And it will come off. And then they go in those boxes. This is every single string from every single malt bag that we've ever used.
And how long have you
over
been
the last
going?
7 years.
7 years. Are you going to knit a nice woolly hat with it?
I have no idea.
Please help. I can't do it. What did I do wrong? Thank you. Yeah, I did it that time. So we've got bags of barley and bags of wheat, both of which have been tricked.
Both of which have been malted.
And so the malted means tricking them into growing slightly.
Exactly.
I thought malt was an extra grain rather than a grain that had the process applied to it. Okay.
So obviously inside a seed, there's a reservoir of lots of sugars.
It's food for the seed to
It's
grow.
food for the seed to grow. And that sugar is what becomes the alcohol.
Yeah.
So we don't want the seed to use it up, we want to use it.
Yeah. So you start off the process by malting them so then we can access that sugar.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we've just got some boring grains with no sugar we can get to.
Yes, exactly. Right, so that's all the bags open.
Okay.
If you want to grab those two,
Yeah.
we'll stick them in there.
Okay. What's this thing called?
So this is the grist hopper.
Grist hopper.
Yeah. So grist is the term for like all the grains that you would use.
Okay.
So pour those first bags in.
So this is all going to go up that pipe.
This all
I
gets sucked
assume?
up this pipe
Yeah.
and then dropped into the mash tun.
Okay.
Also put that in there. This is some salts
Okay.
that basically treat the water
Yeah.
to change the water chemistry of the to accentuate the various flavors in
Are
the
they
in the
salt
water.
with a capital S or other salts of other chemicals?
Other salts.
Yeah.
And if you pull that
This?
out, yep, all the way to the wall,
Yep.
that just opens the door so it'll fall
Dropping
into the
down
hopper.
there, yeah.
And then we head upstairs.
Okay.
With our grains ready to go, it was time to start the process of actually making beer.
Brewers don't make beer.
Okay.
Brewers make wort.
Making wort. The first step of the process centres around this piece of kit called a mash tun. This is the place where the grains are mixed with water to extract all the sugary goodness needed to make beer.
The grain will come through there, the water will come in there, it'll all mix together.
Hopper up the pipe, in here, with water.
Precisely.
So to kick things off, Ben let me have a play with some levers and we started filling the tank with water.
So if you look in there, you'll see some plates.
Okay.
And what we're doing right now is just putting enough liquor to cover the plates.
Plates being the bottom of it?
Exactly. So it's like a false bottom that the water can flow out, but the grain can't.
Oh, so that's a filter.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so we're putting that in just to cover the plates, and we call that the foundation liquor.
The mash tun essentially acts like a giant coffee pot, where the grains are the coffee beans and the plates at the bottom are the coffee filter.
So that's all coming through now. Now we run downstairs. That's where we're putting the grist in the auger.
Okay.
And if you turn the grist feed up to full speed.
Full speed?
Full speed.
I tell you what, with all of the levers and all of the bashing and everything, you give off full wacky professor vibes.
That's what I go for. The lightning rod comes later.
Once the mash tun is filled, the temperature gets checked to make sure it's in the correct spot for this exact recipe.
What would happen if the temperature wasn't right then?
So you have different temperatures for different optimal enzymes, which create different sugars in. They break
different
the starch
temperatures.
down.
You'll get different breakdowns of starch.
Different concentration of sugars, and that will change the beer. Exactly.
Okay. So that sits there for an hour. Is it stirring or is it just?
No,
sitting?
it just sits there.
And that sits there, and then we wait for it to. I was going to say brew, but it's not brewing. But
so it's currently mashing.
Mashing.
The next step, you've got all that grain, which acts as a filter bed.
Yeah.
And we'll spray water on top. That's the sparge. And then as we're extracting sugar water at the bottom.
In the course of making this series, I've got to work with so many people who are outstanding in their field, and that includes the team working behind the camera too. And while I choose to release these videos completely for free, I'll be honest, they do cost several grand to make, and I haven't got an advert for this one. So if you'd like to join the group of wonderful people who are supporting me on Patreon, you'll get to see some bits from my day that didn't quite make it in this video. The link's in the description below, and I'll be honest, you can join for free too. Most of the stuff I put on there isn't paywalled, so come along, join the fun.
After giving the grain a chance to rest for an hour, I did a quick costume change, and then it was time for the next step, draining our sugar water.
Go for it.
Whoosh.
And then, if you want to grab me a sample of that.
Okay.
About half that. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
Grand. Drink it if you like.
That is so sweet.
So that's what we call first runnings.
Okay.
And that's the strongest the sugar water gets.
Right.
That's like the first extract. And now we're about to start rinsing it down from the top to get all the rest of the sugar out.
Oh, so we spin the...
If you open that valve for me.
Yeah.
So now I'm using the different pump. It's coming out of that vessel now.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's got lots of water in it. And this is the bit that's happening like coffee. We've got the water draining through from the top to get the last of the flavours and the stuff we want to taste out of it before then that becomes animal feed.
At this point, Ben directed me to the big tank beside me so I could see where our wort was going to end up next.
That's the kettle or the copper. Traditionally, it's called the copper because they used to be made out of copper. Exactly. So
and what happens in the kettle?
In the kettle, that's where we boil it, just like your kettle at home.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh, and it's filling in from the bottom. Oh, that's really cool. You can see it coming in from the side and swirling slightly.
At this stage, the wort that we created earlier is being pumped from the mash tun to the next container, which, as Ben said, is basically just a giant kettle. Once it's in there, it's time for more ingredients to be added.
Chuck that straight in. These are hop pellets. It starts life on a vine. They get ground up and stuck into pellet form.
So these are leaves that have been ground up and...
Pretty much.
Okay.
So if you want to grab those, you can mix them together. They can sort of grind them up and they just become a sort of powder.
Yeah.
Get your nose in there. All sorts of sort of floral, citrusy. So all of these fruity aromas
that is so fruity, yeah.
that you get in beer, that's
Yeah.
where they come from.
Right.
After waiting about 45 minutes, the mash tun had almost finished draining, so it was time to play with some more levers.
Basically,
Okay.
we'll wait for these. These will become like cloudy, and you'll see like bits of grain coming through.
Oh, cool.
And that's when we know it's finished. And then we close it off and send the last of it into the copper.
Oh,
So there you go. So kill the valve.
Oh, yeah, all the sediment.
So now we need to run upstairs to put it onto the boil. So just adjust that up to 104.
So we've had it warm until now, but now we're going to make it boil.
Exactly.
So while this is boiling, what's happening inside that liquid, like chemically with the yeast and everything? To make the beer?
So yeast is happening obviously later, but what's happening is you're concentrating the wort because you're evaporating off liquid.
Yeah.
The pH is naturally dropping as part of the boiling process.
Okay.
And you're also sterilizing, which is the most important thing.
So we are cleaning it.
Yeah.
We are boiling off the water to make it more syrupy.
Yep.
And then also,
And you're
because
extracting
of
the
whole,
bitterness.
because you're taking the water out of it, that is also making the pH go more acidic.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then once we've done this process, we'll end up with a liquid which is at the right amount of acid and sugar
Yep.
for the yeast to be able to nom 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 nom
Precisely.
and turn it into alcohol.
While we left things cooking, Ben told me it was time to help with yet more cleaning.
Do you want to jump up there and do the honors?
Yeah, please. Oh, hello.
Not that big, but yeah, that'll do.
Hey!
And then we go upstairs to turn on the big spinny thing. If you want to press the
Yeah.
start button,
And we've got big spinny things going.
we have big spinny things going.
It's like when you're at the zoo and you see the animals taking care of their motions.
It is animal feed.
I was meaning it looks like poo.
You can actually taste it.
Ooh.
There's no sweetness or sugar left in that at all.
No. And it tastes like porridge. Like, it just tastes like oats.
All the sugar that was in the grain, we've taken out, and what's left behind is just the husk. So once this is full, we'll grab the other bin.
There's not 2 bins worth of stuff in there, is there? When you said earlier, brewing is all about cleaning. I see now. Yeah, this smells a lot less pleasant than it did from the front up here. It definitely smells more like a waste product than the stuff that we all want in the beer.
Now we've taken all the good bits out.
Yeah.
With the mash tun empty and the boiling complete, we were ready to move to the next step. Thankfully, Ben had me to help out.
Oh wow, that smells really beery now. Oh, that's hot.
With insights like that, I think it's safe to say there should be nothing to worry about.
So now if we come off the boil, so if you turn the copper jacket off with that little black switch,
Copper jacket off.
and then we come downstairs
Yeah.
to do what's called the liquoring back. So this is where we're adding a bit of water into the hot kettle
Yeah.
to bring the temperature down to whirlpool temperature.
Okay.
So that
The
opens
water's on and we go back up again.
and back up again. And then we turn our cold liquor tank pump on.
Okay. And that's going in here.
Yes. So we're just adding water to bring down the temperature. And then in a moment, once we've put in all the liquor,
Yeah.
we'll add more hops in.
Yeah.
So just how I was saying, the heat extracts the bitterness from the hops.
Yeah.
And we put that in right at the beginning to get all the bitterness. Right now, we don't want to add bitterness. We want all those
Flavour.
juicy aromas and all sorts of other things. So that's why we put it in at a lower temperature, so that less of the bitterness is extracted.
We cool it down, so then we get, yes, okay.
So
And
then
it is
extract-
just like herbs, because you put herbs in the beginning, you get the kind of the bitter, the grit,
Exactly.
the oomph. And at the end, you sprinkle on the top once you finish.
Precisely. Oh, easy.
Oops. These are the same things you were
Same
showing me
pellets,
before.
yeah.
Okay.
So they all go straight in. So it's just going to settle in there now.
Yeah.
For 10 minutes, and then we turn the pump on and whirlpool it for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
which will spin the whole liquid, and it will suck all the hops into the center
Yeah.
and create a nice clean mound
Right.
that gets left behind.
So the whirlpool is to collect it all up, so then we can get rid
Yeah.
of all the solids that we don't want
Exactly.
in our beer.
At this point, we're just about ready to move the wort to the final stop of its tour, the fermentation vessel.
So if you close those valves for me,
Oh, this is a tight squeeze for a large man.
we need to open the sidearm, and we leave that open so
the
that
air to get out.
The
'cause
air we
we're
need to get out.
pushing stuff in
Exactly.
from the bottom, and the air needs to go somewhere.
With the vessel now prepped, it was time to start cooling and transferring across the wort.
He's turned the pumps on, and that's now getting pumped through into the bottom of the fermentation vessel.
If you take that and you
Yeah.
grab me a sample from that tap just there.
Okay, and this should be chilled by the time it
Exactly.
gets here as well.
Yeah.
I can smell the hops in it immediately.
So you can give that a taste.
Oh, that's really weird, because it's like flat beer, but it's not quite beer.
So now I've got to head upstairs and analyse this to see
Yeah.
how on target we are. Here we're taking what we call it as a gravity,
Okay.
which is basically comparing the density of this
Yeah.
to the density of water.
And is that
And-
what determines the amount of sugar?
That's how we
in it?
measure the amount of sugar.
Okay.
So here we have what's called a hydrometer,
Yeah.
and this will float, and it will tell us how dense the liquid is
Oh, by how much it's floating.
exactly, and therefore that gives us a number of how much sugar there is inside it. As the yeast eats the sugar, the density goes down,
Yeah.
and so we can measure how much sugar's been eaten, and
Yeah.
therefore how much alcohol is in it. We just look up the little temperature conversion, and then we also measure pH, just to double check.
Yeah.
And that is all our samples done.
Okay, and you're happy with them all?
Yes.
The sugar's at the level you're expecting,
Exactly.
which means the yeast's going to have the food it needs. The pH is at the right level, so the yeast is going to be warm and comfortable.
Precisely.
And the beer should work now.
Exactly.
And with that, the final thing for us to do was add the all-important yeast to our wort.
We've got everything in here now except for the yeast.
Exactly.
So this is yeast time.
So yes, we're gonna just put the yeast straight in the top of the tank.
Yeah.
So give it a good spray down.
More
Make sure it's
sterilisation.
still
After all this work, we don't want to let anything bad in there.
Another.
Oh, so the yeast comes with its own little open your cap. It's wet.
So yes, this recipe calls for wet yeast,
I've only seen
like dry baker's yeast.
Yeah, in a block or in a powder. It looks like cream.
Yes, or salted caramel ice cream, whichever
Yeah. I bet it doesn't taste as nice.
one. No.
Oh wow! It smells like a beer cellar,
Yeah. That's.
but like the bad bit. So we've got everything in.
everything's in.
That now needs to sit.
Yes.
How long does it sit for?
So roughly a week it'll be fermenting,
Okay.
and then we do what's called cold crashing.
Cold crashing.
So that's basically getting it down to as close to zero as possible
Okay.
to chill it, and it gets held at that temperature. And this
Is that after the week?
Yes, yes. So you got the week, so the week of fermentation.
Yeah.
And then you cold crash, and you're then conditioning the beer cold.
Yeah.
We like to leave our beer in tank for quite a long time, normally a minimum of about 6 weeks,
Oh, okay.
because that gives it a fuller, like more conditioned flavour, basically.
So in a month's time, it's still going to be sat there. It's just going to be completely different.
Exactly.
It's just such an involved process, and you have all these different skills in all the different areas that allow you to tweak it, but you tweak every different minute part of the process.
Yeah.
There's
So you
so
make
many
sure you're
different
on
ways.
the
You've got
go we want.
so much control that I would never have imagined that you needed to take.
Well, now you know.
Everything, yeah. Well, thank you so much for all of this. I really appreciate you sharing me and with everyone else watching the skill it takes to do this. And it's so cool just watching someone up close doing all of this kind of thing. So thank you so much.
We'll swing by for a pint of it in a few weeks, a few months' time,
Absolutely,
when
I
it's
will
ready.
do. Yeah.